My name is Mark Johnson, and I'm an accountant. I deal in ledgers, in rules, in things that balance. I believe that for every debit, there is a credit. For every action, a logical and proportional reaction. My house, Lot 114, Harmony Creek Estates, was erased on a Tuesday. Not by fire, not by flood, not by an act of God. It was erased by Brenda Higgins and a yellow Caterpillar D9 bulldozer, authorized by the Harmony Creek Homeowners Association Architectural Review Committee. The reason, according to the final letter I found taped to my miraculously still standing mailbox, was persistent and incurable noncompliance. The noncompliance, you ask? It started with the shutters. Harmony Creek is one of those places, a mastered planned community where the grass is a uniform 3 inches, the trees are all symmetrically planted Bradford pears, and the color palette for your entire existence is governed by a 3-ring binder thick enough to stop a bullet. The book is called the Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, or the CC&Rs. We just called it the book. I moved there with my wife Sarah 6 years ago. Sarah was an architect, not the kind who designed sterile glass boxes, but the kind who believed a home should be a portrait of the people inside. She loved color. She loved light. Our house was her design, shoehorned onto a lot that the developers had deemed awkward. Where they saw a problem, she saw potential. She designed the house with a small cloistered garden in the back, shielded from the identical beige neighbors by a high brick wall. She'd put a skylight directly over the kitchen island, and she had picked out a specific, vibrant, defiant shade of blue for the shutters. "It's called azure sky," she told me, holding up the paint chip. "It's the exact color of the water in Santorini. It's a happy color, Mark." We were happy. For 3 years we were. Then Sarah got sick. The fast kind. The kind that makes a mockery of plans. 6 months from diagnosis to, 6 months. I was left with the house. This portrait of her. The skylight she'd sketched. The garden she planted. For 2 years I lived in it like a museum, careful not to disturb the exhibits. I, the accountant, became the curator of a life that was infinitely more vibrant than my own. And then Brenda Higgins was elected president of the HOA board. Brenda was a woman who lived for the comment section of the community newsletter. She walked the neighborhood every morning at 7 a.m., armed with a clipboard, a tape measure, and a level of righteous fury usually reserved for holy wars. Her first decree was mailbox standardization. All mailboxes had to be the Harmony Creek Heritage Model, a $300 black and gold monstrosity. Fine, I bought it. Her second was seasonal display limitations. Holiday lights could only be warm white, no colors, and could not be illuminated before the 1st of December, nor remain past the 2nd of January. My first infraction was the shutters. The letter arrived on beige cardstock. "Dear resident of Lot 114, it has come to the attention of the Architectural Review Committee, ARC, that your exterior window coverings, shutters, are of an unapproved color in violation of Article 4, Section 2B, Approved Exterior Pigmentations. The approved palette consists of colonial navy, forest green, and midnight black. You have 14 days to remediate this violation. Failure to comply will result in a fine of $50 per day. In Harmony, the ARC board. In Harmony. It felt like a threat. I wrote back. I explained that the color was part of the home's original design, that it was chosen by my late wife. I was polite. I was reasonable. Brenda herself responded, "Dear Mr. Johnson, grief is not a valid basis for a variance. The rules are clear. Azure Sky is not on the list. In Harmony, Brenda Higgins, HOA President." I, the accountant, the man of rules, was stunned. The sheer callous indifference of it. This wasn't about community. It was about power. I didn't paint the shutters. The fines began. $50 a day. I let them accumulate, filing the beige envelopes in a box labeled HOA tyranny. As an accountant, I knew this was stupid. I knew it would become a problem, but I couldn't bring myself to paint over Sarah's blue. It was the last, brightest piece of her I had left. After 6 months, the fines totaled over $9,000. The HOA's lawyer sent me a notice of intent to lien. They were placing a lien on my house for shutters. I hired a lawyer. He sighed when I explained the situation. Mark, I'll be honest with you. HOA law is its own beast. The CC&Rs are a contract you signed when you bought the house. A judge is going to look at this, see you're in clear violation, and side with him. You're fighting a battle you will lose. Just paint the shutters. I refused. I would not let Brenda win. I would not let a beige binder erase my wife. The war escalated. Brenda, emboldened by my defiance, began to look for other infractions. Violation, lawn maintenance. My lawn in the back, near Sarah's garden, was 3.5 inches. The book demanded 3.0. Fine, $25. Violation, unauthorized flora. Sarah's Jubilee celebration rosebush, a riot of pink and yellow she debuted for years, had grown through the likeness on her garden wall, its branches visible from the street. The book strictly forbade any flora protruding beyond the vertical plane of the lot line. Fine, $100. This one broke me. This was her garden. I went to the next HOA meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a room that smelled of industrial carpet cleaner and weak coffee. Brenda sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 2 other board members who looked perpetually startled. Mr. Johnson, she said, not looking up from her notes, you are here to appeal the fine for the unapproved rosebush. I am here, Brenda, to ask you to stop, I said, my voice shaking. This is harassment. You're fining me for a flower. I am fining you, she said, for a violation of Article 6, Section 4. The rules keep our property values high. It's a rose bush, I held, losing my accountant's cool. It's just a damn rose bush. Language, Mr. Johnson, the fine stands. I looked at the other residents. They stared at their laps. They were all afraid of her, afraid of being fined for the wrong brand of welcome mat, for a wind chime, for a life that was anything other than beige. I left. I paid the fines for the grass and the rose bush, but I didn't paint the shutters. The lien was now $15,000. Then I had to go to Chicago for a week, a major corporate audit. I dreaded leaving, consumed by a low-grade anxiety. I was worried I'd come home and find my shutters painted colonial navy. I should have been so lucky. The final letter must have arrived the day after I left. I never saw it. I only found it later in the wreckage. It was a notice of abatement. It cited the lien for the shutters. It cited the incurable nature of the rosebush. It cited my hostile and uncooperative attitude at the meeting. It declared Lot 114 a persistent blight on the harmony of the community. And it invoked Article 9, Section 8, right to remediate. This clause, varied on page 214 of the book, stated that if a property was in persistent and willful noncompliance, and if said noncompliance merely harmed the aesthetic or financial well-being of the community, the HOA board had the right to take any and all steps necessary to abate the nuisance at the homeowner's expense. Any and all steps necessary. I, the accountant, had read the book. I remembered that line. I had assumed it meant they could forcibly hire a painter or a gardener and bill me for it. I had assumed it proportional reaction. I had not accounted for the breathtaking, terrifying, psychopathic literalism of Brenda Higgins. I flew back on a Tuesday. The audit had been a success. I was tired, thinking only of a hot shower and a quiet evening in Sarah's garden. I turned on to Harmony Creek Drive. I passed Lot 110, the Millers, Lot 112, the Chins, and then I saw Lot 114, or rather, I saw where it was supposed to be.
My first thought was, I am on the wrong street. But no, there was the Chin's house, and there, next to it, was an empty, muddy patch of red clay. Parked in the middle of this square of dirt, its tracks caked in mud and splinters, was a bright yellow bulldozer. I stopped the car in the middle of the road. I got out. My legs felt like they were filled with wet sand. The air smelled of fresh dirt and diesel fuel. It was gone. Not just the shutters. The house, the roof, the walls, the skylight, the kitchen island, Sarah's garden. It was all gone. The only thing left was the mailbox, the $300 Harmony Creek Heritage model standing at the edge of the curb like a solitary tombstone. Taped to its door was a single beige envelope. I walked across the mud. My work loafers sunk into the clay. This was where the living room had been. This pile of splintered 2x4s was the bedroom. I saw a fragment of something blue in the dirt, a piece of Sarah's shutter. I reached the mailbox and ripped the envelope off. Dear resident of Lot 114, per the notice of abatement dated October 28th, remediation action has been completed. The blight upon the community has been successfully abated. A bill for the demolition services, landscaping, sod, and outstanding fines will be forwarded to you. We are pleased to report that the proceeds from the auction of the lot's contents have been applied to your outstanding balance. Auction. My stomach seized. Sarah's pictures, her books, my father's watch, my lectures, everything. Auction. To pay for this. It's a much cleaner look, don't you think? I turned. Brenda Higgins was standing on the sidewalk holding her clipboard. She was wearing a crisp white polo shirt. I had no words. My mind was just a static-filled void. Brenda, I finally managed to whisper, you demolished my house. We abated the nuisance, Mr. Johnson, she corrected me, as if I'd used the wrong accounting term. The lien was significant, and the structural non-compliance, the shutters, the rows, was persistent. The board voted unanimously. We had to protect the community's property values. You auctioned my life. The contents of the blighted structure were used to offset the cost of abatement as for Article IX. It's all in the book. She tapped the clipboard. We're laying new sod tomorrow. This would just be a nice green space for the community. A vast improvement. I looked at her. At this woman who had turned a rule about paint into a weapon of mass destruction. This petty tyrant who had bulldozed a woman's memory because it wasn't the right shade. The accountant and me, the man who believed in balance, just snap. The ledger in my head went so far into the red, it ceased to be numbers and just became a scream. I don't remember lunging at her, but I remember the chins pulling me off of her as I shouted words I didn't know I knew. I remember Brenda straightening her polo with a small triumphant smile on her face. "Assaulting a board member," she said, clicking her pen. "That's another violation." The police came. They were, to my surprise, utterly useless. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but she's got the paperwork, a signed court order for the lien and the HOA covenants. It's a civil matter." "A civil matter?" I screamed. "She erased my home." "You'll have to sue them, sir." "Sue them." Right. I spent that night in a motel by the highway, the kind where the curtains smelled like stale cigarettes. I sat on the edge of the bed in my mud-caked suit, and I stared at the wall. I had nothing. No toothbrush, no change of clothes, no photos of Sarah, no home. Just a wallet, a phone, and the key to a rental car. The shock receded, replaced by a cold, pure, diamond-hard rage. Brenda had used the book to destroy me. She had used the rules. Fine. I was an accountant. I knew rules, too. I spent the next 2 months living at that motel. I used my laptop, the motel shaky Wi-Fi. I didn't sue. Not yet. I investigated. And HOA is a nonprofit corporation. Its records, its minutes, its financials are public. As a resident, or technically a former resident who still owned a patch of mud, I had a right to see them. Brenda thought me. She claimed the records were proprietary. I paid my lawyer to send a letter that was so dense with legal threats she had no choice. She sent me a single banker's box. She thought she had buried me in paperwork. She didn't realize she had just given an accountant his ammunition. I spent a week in that motel room, fueled by vending machine coffee, building a spreadsheet. I cross-referenced every invoice, every check, every landscaping contract, every fine. And I found it. Brenda hadn't just been a tyrant. She had been a thief. The landscaping contract for the new community green space, my lot, had been awarded to Harmony Lawn Care LLC, a company I discovered was registered to her brother-in-law. The bill was for $50,000 for Sal. I got 3 independent quotes. The job shouldn't have cost more than $10,000. The community patrol car she leased for her $800 a month, leased from a dealership her cousin managed. And the fines. Oh, the fines. I traced the deposits. The money from the fines wasn't going into the HOA's general fund. It was going into a separate account named ARC Beautification Fund, an account for which Brenda Higgins was the sole signatory. She wasn't just enforcing the rules, she was profiting from them. She had weaponized the CTNRs for kickbacks and embezzlement. My shutters, my rosebud, my house, it wasn't about uniformity, it was a power play and a payday. She'd made an example of me to keep everyone else in line, and she has skimmed $50,000 off of my tragedy. I didn't go to the police. Not first. I called for an emergency meeting of the old hotels. As a member, I was allowed. I posted notices on every Harmony Grid Heritage mailbox. Topic: a special financial assessment. Urgent. They okayed. The room in the clubhouse was packed. They were terrified. They thought I was going to sue them all or that Brenda was going to raise the fees. Brenda sat at the head table, looking smug. "Mr. Johnson, you are no longer resident. You have no standing." I am the owner of lot 114, Brenda, and that makes me a member, I said. I was calm. I was an accountant at an audit. I knew rules too. I undid the projector. I put my spreadsheet on the wall. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just read the numbers. April 5th, a payment of $8,000 for pool maintenance to a company that doesn't exist. On May 10th, a check of $50,000 to Harmony Lawn Care LLC for Lot 114 remediation. The registered agent of SLLC is one Gerald Higgins. I saw Brenda from Face Co-Room, smug to confused to the color of drywall. And here, I said, my voice dropping, is the beautification fund. Total deposits over 2 years, $48,250. This matches almost to the dollar the total fines levied by the ARC in the same period. Total withdrawals, $48,000 to a personal savings account. The room was silent. You could hear a pin drop on the industrial carpet. Then Mr. Chen from Lot 112 stood up. She fined me $200 because my garbage can was visible from the street. Mrs. Miller from 100 said, she made me rip out my azaleas. The heat room erupted. The people who
Suddenly, the room erupted. The people who had been too scared to defend my rosebush were now a mob. They had their own stories, their own beige envelopes, their own petty fines. They realized they hadn't been in harmony. They'd been funding Brenda's savings account. This time, Brenda was the one being screamed at. And this time when the police arrived, called by Brenda, claiming I was inciting a riot, I didn't yell. I just handed the lead officer a folder. Detective, I said, I'm an accountant. This is a case of criminal fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. Here is the evidence. Brenda Higgins was arrested. Her husband and brother-in-law, too. The state attorney's office took my spreadsheet and 3 months later got a conviction on all counts. The HOA was forced into receivership. My lawsuit, which I filed the next day, was settled so fast it made my head spin. The community's insurance, facing the reality of what had happened, paid out the full replacement value of my home, plus damages for the auctioned contents, plus punitive damages that made my eyes water. It was enough money to rebuild the house twice over. But I didn't. I sold the lot, the empty, muddy patch of land. I let the bank foreclose on it. I let the Harmony Creek Estate sign at the front entrance fall into disrepair. I heard through my lawyer that the place went bankrupt. I couldn't live there. I couldn't rebuild Sarah's house. The portrait was gone. The memory was mine, but the house was a crime scene. I live in a high-rise apartment downtown now. I can see the whole city. There are no rules about shutters. My windows don't even have shutters. I'm still an accountant. I still believe in ledgers. I believe that for every debit there must be a credit. Brenda Higgins created a debit so massive, so profoundly unjust, that the universe had no choice but to balance the books. I have a balcony. It's small, but last week I went to a nursery and I bought a small potted plant. It's Jubilee Celebration Rose. It's already got a bud, a defiant little knot of pink and yellow. It's not much, but it's not beige, and it's all mine.